Good morning, everyone. I'd like to talk about the challenge of integrating COBie into project handover documentation. To set the scene, first of all, just like to give you some background on our company. We're specialists in project handover documentation. We've been producing operating and maintenance manuals and project handover safety files in paper and digital format for over 10 years now. Some of the projects that we've worked on over the last number of years include the Convention Centre, Grand Canal Square Theatre, State Street Bank, just trying to get State Street Bank and St Vincent's Hospital. We've also worked internationally on some projects in Abu Dhabi, Bahrain, and we're currently working on a number of projects in New Zealand. Some of the projects are clients that we've worked on in the past. In terms of project handover files, we like to regard the file as a building manual, a digital building manual. And strangely enough, if you buy an electric kettle, you'll generally receive a 50-page manual, fully indexed, telling you everything from how to plug the kettle in to how to fill the kettle with water. And yet, if you spend 40 or 50 million on a complex building, you could end up with boxes of paper. If you're lucky, they could find themselves in a filing cabinet. If you're unlucky, they end up in the basement storeroom. Building owners at the moment are looking for better ways to maintain their assets, and many use CMMS systems and CAFM systems to help them reduce the cost of operating and maintaining the buildings. And a comprehensive set of handover documentation on a completed project is a key to enable them to do this. The project handover on large complex buildings can run to many thousands, 20, 30,000 files in many cases. When you couple this with the amount of drawings involved, the thousands of drawings, it can be quite a challenge to find a place to store and maintain this. And as I said earlier, in many cases, the information ends up in the basement storeroom. Another point that we find in some of the handover documentation is that warranty information, serial numbers and model numbers are not included in the handover documentation, which makes it difficult for the building owner at a later stage to repair or replace equipment. If the warranty information is not known, in a lot of cases the equipment is simply replaced, where in many cases it could have been pulled back to the manufacturer as a warranty item. So what we try to do is turn the heaps and boxes of paper into an organised digital format where everything is in an organised structure, fully searchable and organised by system, so people are able to find information as quickly and as easily as they need to do. Taking all of the documentation on a job, there's a considerable amount of information needed to maintain the building. Most of that at the moment is better served if it's done in a digital format. We should also make sure that once information is entered into the system, and this is starting at the design stage, that is transferred successfully across. And there's a huge gap in that interoperability between design stage and construction stage. It's also vital that the FM team on the project have full confidence in the documentation as it's handed over. As you'll see in a few slides in a few minutes, that level of confidence is lacking in a lot of cases, and the FM team are actually re-auditing the building and recreating information because they don't have the trust in the information handed over. The accepted exchange format at the moment between digital software systems is IFC, the Industry Foundation class, and COBie is a subset of that, mainly containing O&M information, but very little geometry information. As I said, most of the planning and design of new buildings is now done digitally using various different software packages, but unfortunately these software packages don't talk to each other. And to gain the benefit from a pure full digital handover, we need to address this lack of interoperability between buildings, between different software systems. A study recently carried out in the States by the Institute of Science and Technology estimated that in 1 year alone, almost 16 billion was lost due to the lack of interoperability on projects. In that same situation, 4.8 billion was spent by FM teams either recreating information or verifying or re-verifying information because they hadn't got the faith and trust in the information as it was handed over. And in most cases, about 600 million was spent transferring the information, even handed over in COBie form or other forms, into a suitable form for the CMMS system. As has been stated earlier, the operating and maintenance costs of a building can amount to 80 to 85% of the actual life cycle cost of the building. So it's important to pay the full attention to that. The UK Department of Trade and Industry conducted a study recently into IFC-based handover documentation systems. And the aim of that project was to try and eliminate the delay in populating an FM system. One of the estimates that was put on that delay and the results from that was that on a typical hospital project, you could have a delay of anything between 6 and 12 months at a cost of 200,000 sterling just to populate the CMMS system. So how do we get the information from the design side across to the facilities maintenance? COBie has been pushed as the main exchange format to ensure the facilities information is consumed efficiently from the design team through to the construction and finally on to the FM team. Most of the attention is on COBie. COBie, I think, stands for Construction Operation Building Information Exchange. So what is COBie? It's a data exchange format rather than a database or an asset management system, and it's designed purely for managed assets. And this is one of the shortcomings, I believe, within this COBie exchange format system. There's a huge amount of additional information handed over and required for proper facilities management and maintenance. And if you're only monitoring or exchanging managed assets within a COBie format, you need a number of other formats to exchange the rest of the information, as you'll see. COBie uses a uniclass system for classification, but it could equally well use it uses a nominee-class, but it could use a uniclass if necessary. The information can be delivered in XML or in spreadsheet form. It doesn't require any special software. But having said that, if you try to make an effective use of a building handover file that contains something like 9,000 or 10,000 lines of information in a COBie spreadsheet, you'll find it very hard to find that information as you need it. What COBie is not, as I said, is it's not an asset management system. It won't facilitate the exchange of information regarding systems, nor will it facilitate the exchange of information on the original specification performance or the as-built drawings. So you could get a COBie file for a project, and in that COBie file you'd find there's no as-built drawings, no original performance specification and details of the job. There's no naming formal naming convention within a COBie spreadsheet system, although they do recommend a naming system. So if you have different software packages using different naming conventions and then try to pull those together into a federated model, you could end up with duplications and problems. As I mentioned earlier, the COBie format is designed for managed assets only. Now, to get the full handover of a project, there's at least 10 other formats ranging from HVAC, .ie to exchange the information on the heating and ventilation, Sparky for the electrical services, LC for life cycle information. So and most of these exchange formats are still in their infancy. Some haven't yet taken off. This is a typical COBie spreadsheet. The information is broken over a number of tabs. Each tab designed to be filled in progression as you move from design through to construction and then finally on to facilities maintenance. The COBie is designed to be handed over in a number of data drops, but as you'll see from the slide overhead here, most of the information is intended to be gathered and imparted at design stage, with basic things like model numbers, serial numbers being populated by the construction team. So it is going to put a huge additional cost onto the design side, and in a lot of cases the building model is never finished, because if you're taking commissioning data, you've then got to go back to the building model to push that commissioning data into. So it's going to put a huge extra cost on the design side, and possibly just shift it from construction across. There are 5 different drops recommended in COBie, from the initial space planning stage through to the handover stage, and then a final about 12 months after completed handover. To get COBie information out of BIM software, there are a number of different tools. Most of the current BIM systems, the likes of Revit, Bentley and ArchiCAD, will provide some means of extracting COBie out into, extracting information out into a COBie file. But in some cases you've got to go through IFC before you can actually get to COBie, and that's a time-consuming and it's still not a fully tested means of doing that. If you're looking for some additional information in terms of COBie and the format, it's a blog that I would recommend. There's a lot of good information in there, BIM Fix blog. So how do we get information from the model? And Barry mentioned earlier the project, the CITA pilot project in Rollstown. In that situation, most of the design team were using ArchiCAD and some other systems. So all of those files were pulled together into separate IFC files, which then had to be merged together to allow us to produce a set of handover documentation. We produced a software system that allows you to take that individual file, or those 10 or 12 individual files, pull them together into a single IFC file, and then push them through the free tool that is available. But it's a command line utility. It's not a user-friendly software package to allow you to take IFC files and convert them into COBie. Once we've done that, we end up in a situation where we've the COBie, all the types that are picked up on the COBie spreadsheet, all the systems picked up from the COBie spreadsheet, the components, documents, and finally the contact information. This is all merged from the various different IFC files that were produced on the project. From there, we've got to map them into a set of project handover files. What you've got on the right-hand side here is the typical structure that we would see in most handover files, where we're breaking information down by project information and by electrical services, mechanical services, and so on. Over on the left is the information as it exists in the COBie file format. So the aim is to get it from this side over onto the right-hand side, and we do that with a mapping system that allows us to determine information. If it's internal plumbing, we know it's going into the mechanical services. Doors are going into interior fabrics and finishes and the like. So once we press the button to transfer from left to right, information is transferred straight into a digital safety file format. You'll see the yellow are sections within the digital safety file format that haven't received information coming from the COBie file. The information that's left here on the left-hand side is information that's in the COBie file that hasn't got a happy home in the digital safety file. So it's a matter then of mapping that manually across. But as you get through different systems, the mapping system will build, so it should be a reasonably seamless process to bring it across. Once we get it across into the system, we've got a fully populated documentation system. We've got an asset register, contact database, and finally ready to push it across into a digital safety file system. So all the information comes across into the space that it should reside in within the safety file format, and you can then get in and access the information through a digital handover file or safety file. That's my end. I think I've gone about 3 minutes ahead of time, hopefully.
Great. Thank you. I'd like to commend all the speakers for their promptness. And I think it was very interesting that Bobby and Barry both touched on the disconnect between designers and FM, you know, with the designing in the zinc cladding that, you know, is a maintenance nightmare, and the fact that FM have to go back and re-audit the building. A lot of our buildings, which have been heralded as very green, we hear the other side from the facility managers, because we have members from all stakeholders in the built environment. We hear from the FM side what a nightmare those buildings are actually to maintain. So I'd like to take questions first for Bobby, and then we'll have some general questions. We'll open it to 3 speakers. Any questions for Bobby? I'll ask a question. So, what has been the impact for FM when they get these properly collated? Have you any reactions from the FM on getting a properly collated electronic safety file?
Yeah, it's opening up a whole new world in terms of being able to access the information, even across a project team. If you do it in the old paper-based way, where 20 or 30 files or 40 files are handed over, they're accessible in only one place. Using this type of technology, particularly with clients who have offices throughout the world, the FM management is able to plug into the safety file, the handover documentation for any project in any location in the world, just over a web browser. So it's giving information at their fingertips as they need it.
Okay, so I bought you a bit of time. Has anybody got a question?
So, sorry, Bobby. A lot of the current FM, providers, software providers, are just no more than elaborate document management systems. Are those people and those providers transitioning at the moment, or into using these new formats and so on and so forth for facilities management, or what's happening?
I believe they are. There is a disconnect between the two. I mean, at the moment, if we can provide information, particularly asset management information, across in an exportable format that can be used conveniently within their system, it will save that. And possibly the better way to do it is to create a permanent bridge between the two, so that the facilities maintenance software can carry on doing its job, and there's a live link, or a hot link if you like, between that and the documentation system, so that both can live separately, but you can quickly locate a document at a press of a button within the CMMS system. Sorry, just to expand on that, we've one project where we handed over the digital O&M manual. The client wanted to try and integrate that with his computerized maintenance management system. We've now ended up in a situation where someone can report an instance, goes through to the maintenance system. He can pick up then from the maintenance system, in creating his work order, he can pick up the operating and maintenance instructions for the item in question and send that along with the work order to the worker or technician at the other end. And that's because of a direct link and a bridge between the two. It's a common asset register between the two systems.
Okay, have you any other questions for any of the speakers?
Hello, my question is for Jared. I was just interested about the BIM model. You mentioned that the client wanted a BEO rating of A3, but that the building didn't achieve that. I was curious what was lacking in the original design, and how would the BIM model have helped in achieving the BEO rating of A3?
Well, basically it was the thickness in some of the doors that was specified for the actual ambulance base, and basically they weren't thick enough, or they didn't have enough thickness of insulation in the actual doors that were specified. So in the BIM model, in your documentation, that you can assign certain U values to that, and you can estimate will that actually affect your BER rating, or does it comply with the regs?
Have you any other questions? Okay, well, that's very good timing. We're just finishing exactly on time. I've just one announcement to make. The Golden Barley room is not in use this afternoon, so you'll be using the Olivia Guinness room instead. So just note that in your programme. So no further questions for the speakers? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to the speakers. They were excellent presentations.